In this video, I will show you the secrets to racing widowhood cocks. I'll give you some updated methods that'll bring you into the future. Most everyone racing widowhood cocks is doing the same thing they were doing in the 1930s when the system first got popularized. The old traditional widowhood system was really you would mate the pigeons, let the cocks raise around the babies, sit a second set of eggs, break them up, start the widowhood system. Then years later, people started just letting the birds sit a round of eggs. And again, that took more and more time. I started maybe 10, 15 years ago. Don't even introduce the hens to the cocks until the night of the first race. Now you can train the birds, you can fly the birds. You don't have to worry about the hens. You don't have to raise babies. Why take away any of the energy from the boys? All beneficial. So you could go into the first race without the widowhood cocks ever seeing. So now I've just saved you some time where you didn't mate the cocks. It's you're training the birds, you're exercising them, you're leading up to the first race. A traditional widowhood type system, what I would do is maybe 30 minutes before you're going to basket the boys for the race, bring in the hens. Let them play. What I didn't do in the old days when I messed with hens, and I'm going to get into it, that I really don't even mess with hens anymore, I would not open the nest boxes. So I'd bring in the hens, let them have a big party, ship them to the race. They'd come home, maybe spend 2 hours with the hens the next day, and they start to catch on. Now, if you reward an animal for something every time they do it, and then you stop rewarding that animal, they'll stop doing what you've trained them to do in a short period of time. But if you reward them and then don't reward them for the response and then reward them, then 3 or 4 times they come home, say the hens aren't there, and then they come home and the hens are there, they will constantly be rushing home because the hens might be there. So it's an animal thing. It's a mental thing. So if the hens were always there, and then they come home and the hens aren't there. They come home, the hens aren't there, and the next time they're not going to really care because they figure the hens aren't there. But if the hens are staggered, sometimes there, sometimes not there after the race or after training, they'll keep rushing for the hens. Traditional widowhood has always been the cocks rush home because of the mates of the hens. Now, what I started seeing many years ago, the longer I went between the cocks seeing the hens, the better the cocks did. So I was wondering, well, what's up with that? You think that if they've gone 2 or 3 weeks without seeing the hens, they would have a worse performance, but they were actually having better performances. So I would not worry so much about the hens. Like, you can race a traditional widowhood. You can show the hens in the short races. You can have the hens home in the nest, in the boxes when the cocks come home from the race. You can also not deal with hens at all, which I'll get into a little later into the video. By racing a traditional widowhood where the hens are waiting for the boys to come home after the race, it is always better to have hens that want to mate to the cocks. Now, in some cases, the hens will be mated up to each other. They won't be interested. You're better off having interested hens or less hens than trying to worry about a hen for every pigeon in the loft. I would usually, in the old days, just grab some unmated stock hens or some young hens that, would mate when the cocks returned, show some interest. Wasn't necessarily a certain mate for a certain pigeon. Doesn't make any difference. My widowhood cocks would always share their hens. I would have, due to lack of space, when I originally started flying widowhood, I might have 20 boys and 8 hens. They shared the hens, which worked just fine. Another misconception with the widowhood cocks is every cock has to have a nest box. You can literally fly them off of perches in a young bird section. It doesn't really matter. I used to think, each cock would have a nice big nest box. It would protect the nest box. And then I realized in the evening I had a section with just pole perches and V perches, and all the boys would leave the nest boxes and go sleep on the pole perches and V perches. And I was like, why would they leave the luxury accommodations over here to go sleep over there? It doesn't matter. If you want to race your Widowhood Cocks to perches, that's fine. You don't have to get fancy. You don't have to worry about nest bowls, big fancy nests. Make it work for you. Keep it simple. If you're busy, let them come home. Don't even have the hens waiting for them. It doesn't matter. And I'll get into at the end of the video some secrets of racing them celibate, which I evolved into racing the widow cocks celibate and eliminated the hens, because all the motivation stuff is a big crock of crap. If you can get away with racing pigeons to the top over and over and over without any motivation at all. So we'll get into that a little later. Once you realize that pigeons race home for the love of the loft, to be home, they race. They want to race. Motivation, I'm under the impression you might help one and hurt 20. So that's why if you do race a traditional widowhood, have the hens waiting for the birds upon return. Never show the hens before the race. Never wind them up. Never stimulate them. You don't want them going into the race all crazy and all pumped up. You want them to go calm. They're going to race home. You may think they're racing home for the hens. They're not racing home for the hens. It doesn't matter a lot. So motivation, again, it's up to you. It's more traditional. If you wanted to race them to the perch, there's a few techniques that I'll discuss about doing that, where it's so simple if you're not messing with the hens. If you want to race straight widowhood to the perch, to the nest, you'll race to the top. You'll never have to worry about even owning a hen for those widowhood. In the old days, even today, some fanciers let the widowhood cocks out twice a day for exercise. They put them out for an hour, usually lock them out for an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening. Crazy. Save yourself some time. Maybe if they race on Saturday, they rest Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, put them out for 90 minutes in the morning. Pigeons don't need more than one exercise flight in a day. If you're training twice a day or exercising pigeons twice a day, you're burning too much energy on the birds. You're taking too much of your own time. It's not needed. Never exercise more than once a day, whether they're young birds, celibate hens, widow cocks. Once a day is plenty, and every day is not. You train your widowhood cocks during the race season? Absolutely. For the last many years, we've only trained our widowhood cocks because of the hawks. We didn't let them out to exercise. You can exercise them some days, let them loft fly. You can take them down the road on training tosses. It doesn't matter. But one thing I have found, that the 90-minute lockout, if you lock the birds out for 90 minutes, that first 45, 50 minutes, they don't do much. The second 45 minutes, they start rolling, they start exercising. So I have found 90 minutes is a good time to lock the birds out, because they waste a lot of time, whether they're looking to get in or they're looking for some feed. But after that, they start to get a little more confidence. They start to roll. They start to fly. They're up and down. So 90 minutes is excellent. The other thing, what I found with the widowhood cocks, as opposed to the celibate hens, the cocks come into better form if they're out bouncing around. So if they're out 90 minutes, 3 mornings a week, they're up and down, they're cooing, they're chasing each other from the house, zipping and flying through the trees, that's all good. It brings on form. Not necessary with the hens. I think it's necessary with the cocks. So even if you are just training the widowhood cocks, say 2 training tosses per week like I do with the hens and like I advocate with my own pigeons, I would suggest 1 or 2 mornings a week for 90 minutes, lock the cocks out. It'll bring on the form. Next, we're going to talk about feeding the widowhood cocks. Has been a system the same system people have been using forever, light to heavy. Now, if you feed your widowhood cocks light to heavy, you're going to ship them to the races heavy. My thought process and what I do is I feed them a depurative mix, whether I mix it myself, say a 75% barley, 25% grain. You feed them once a day until they leave some barley. So after their exercise or in the morning, go in, feed them. You'll know how much. Keep throwing them maybe a couple handfuls at a time. When they start leaving some barley, they've had enough until the next day. then you know you're not underfeeding them. You're feeding them enough so they'll exercise, but yet you're not overfeeding them where they're going to gain a lot of body weight. So that's really important. This feeding, the depurative mix we call it, they eat that from the day after the return to the race through shipping for short distance races. No rich feeds for 300 miles and below, other than when they return from the race. That's when they eat the 1 day of rich seeds. The rest of the time, they're on the light mix, the 75% barley, or a good, brand of depurative, which is mostly barley. What a difference it'll make. Don't start feeding them, say, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You start upping the grains or the fats. It's a mistake. The birds will be too heavy. Now, if you're flying a more traditional widowhood and they're coming home to the hens and maybe the results start to drop, you can always pick a race and bring in the hens 24 hours before shipping. Put straw out, give them nest bowls, let them mate, let them build nests, let them just have a big, happy home life. Ship them to the race, let them come home to the hens, then clear everything out and go back to the straight widowhood, or just forget about using hens anymore for the next couple weeks. It just kind of revitalizes them. The other thing, if a bird is not looking right, it's off. Let it rest. Give it a week. Just leave it in the loft, or, if it goes out, so what? Let it rest. Don't worry about medicating or treating them for anything. Rest does wonders. When a bird is stressed, coxy and canker, everything goes up. But when a bird is not stressed, the immune system knocks all that down. So if you were going to test your widowhood cocks after a strenuous race, canker will be up, coxy will be up. 4 or 5 days later, everything is down. So don't reach for the bottle. As most of you know, I don't do any type of flock treatments and medications on my pigeons. I've been like that for 12 years now. They fly terrific. They stay extremely healthy. I use some natural products, but it's so simple. So if a bird is looking off, give it a rest. You'll be surprised how much. If you like my videos, you feel like I give you any value, please subscribe, share them, put on the bell notifications, put a comment down below. Let me know what you think. And that also helps the algorithm. Now, if you're flying a traditional widowhood and you have hens, you want to keep the hens a little hungry. You don't want them mating to each other. So I usually would feed the hens a barley mix. And I'll tell a little story about the barley mix. Say 40 years ago, I had a little section where I kept my hens, and I would feed them 100% barley pretty much 6 days a week. They would eat the grain before they would go in to see the widowhood cocks after the race. But 6 days a week, they would eat the barley. So then when I would go in to grab the hens to bring them to the widowhood cocks, the hens felt better than the race team. These birds that have been out exercising that I was feeding light to heavy. So that's when I started using more and more barley, because my hens were handling better than the cocks, and the hens were just sitting on the perch. So barley is a very important feed. But you want to keep the hens a little hungry. You want them well fed before they go see the boys, so they are interested. If you don't want to use the hens at all, it's not going to really matter. I know most people can't get that out. They think they have to motivate pigeons. You don't have to motivate pigeons. My celibate hens that we race, they've been phenomenal. They come home to the perch. Incredible. Simple system. You can make the cock system just as simple. But like I said before, the cocks come into better form if they can go out and bounce around. They can, take off and sail and chase each other, and that brings on the form more than the hens. The hens can have 2 training flights a week between races and fly at the top every week. Cocks, not quite. They need a little bit more. It takes a little more for the cocks. Now, we touched a little bit upon feeding. For those of you that haven't watched my Master Feeding and You Master Racing video series, please watch that. If you master feeding, you'll master racing. Now, for short distance, it's pretty simple. They're on the depurative mix 6 days a week. Now, when I say short distance, probably less than 6 hours on the wing. There's no need to feed them anything other than the 75% barley right through the day of shipping if they're flying less than 6 hours on the wing. Over 6 hours, you can bring in fat seeds the day of shipping. Long distance races, I feed the fat seeds all they can eat, maybe 2 days, the day before shipping and the day of shipping. That's all they need. You have to think about it as you want enough energy with no extra body weight. You have to find the fine line. You want to have a pigeon as buoyant and as corky as possible with enough energy to complete the task at the highest possible speed. So if you're loading up, you're going on a 5-mile run and you put 25 sandwiches in your backpack, when you only need one sandwich for the 5-mile run, it doesn't make sense. So you have to think about it. You want to give them enough food to complete the task at the highest possible speed. So you never want to send them to the distance races full and round. Their muscles should be still lying flat. You can feel the meat, but they want to be very buoyant and corky, not full and round. If they're full and round, they're fat. And again, you may have won races like that, but everybody's sending fat pigeons to the races. You start sending pigeons like I send them to the races, the results go way, way up. Now, you may want to stimulate the cocks before a short race, never for the long distance races. Go in, take them off the perch, put them in the basket, enter them in the race. Don't be turning over nest bowls, showing hens, and then they're going to be that night, the next day they're on the truck. They waste a lot of energy. Keep them calm. Another little secret to keep them calm, the day of shipping, put warm bath water. I put like lukewarm, just take the chill out of it. Let them take baths, let them lay around. It brings on form, it keeps them calm going into the race, especially long distance. You want to keep them calm. Your results will go up. You don't want them expending hardly any energy on the truck. It's nice if you go in the loft, it's shipping, and the birds are all, they're laying on one wing, and they're just chill. That's the way you want them send to the race, especially long distance races. You want them as calm as possible. When the birds return home from the race, I usually have a mixture of, I use a little bit of honey, vitamin electrolyte, the new biotic, the oregano and cinnamon combination, and Roni, which is a pre and probiotic in the water. Make everything very weak. You don't want to dehydrate the birds by doing a highly concentrated drink when they return from the races. The next 2 days after the races, they drink apple cider vinegar in the water, 1.5 ounces to the gallon. I buy the stuff with the mother, maybe at the health food store, but many of the places sell it. And then the middle of the week, they get 1 teaspoon to the gallon of red cell, the horse vitamin. That's mainly for the iodine. And usually on Tuesday, Tuesday they get the new biotic, the oregano cinnamon. I'll put a link in the description where you can buy it. And that's about it. This is Frank McLaughlin, McLaughlin Lofts. Like and subscribe and share my videos, and I'll keep them coming. Thank you.